has a compressor. Ooh. And the stage is
One rotor and one stator.
rotor stator. Very good. What else about the cooled section?
Very hot.
It's converging.
Ooh. So the whole thing is converging, which gives us what advantage? Increases velocity. But a compressor, you want it to give what for the burner section? High pressure. So how in the world do we get high pressure if we're increasing velocity? Stators. Each stator is a divergent duct, increasing pressure. Very good. What is this area? What are some names for this area? Outlet of the compressor.
P3.
Oh, you get the gold star. P3, this is where we get P3 air, P3 station, typically. Definitely on a PT6. I heard inlet of the burner, outlet of the compressor. What's one other term that can be confusing? Has to do with the burner. Burner pressure. They call this area burner pressure, which is the pressure the burner is receiving, not the pressure within the burner. What about our inlets? Typically, how are they designed? What is the purpose or shape of their design? And why?
High volume, a lot of volume of air.
We want all the volume, and I heard it whispered. We want to, again, build the pressure for the compressors. Very good. Ooh, this is a gold star one. So typically, we want to build the pressure. What is an oddball type of inlet that would be used on test stands? What's the name and how is it designed?
Bell.
Nice. And why do they use that on test stands or another aircraft? What type of aircraft and why?
Helicopters.
Helicopters?
Because they're still moving.
They're still moving. And the bell mouth for increasing the aerodynamics of that air because we need more velocity to get into that very slow moving engine. What are two types of compressors? First of all, what is this type of compressor? Axial. Sweet. And what's the other type? Centrifugal. How briefly describe how the airflow is different for each one? I'll take how generally does airflow in an axial compressor? Straight, pretty much straight through. There's a little bit of curving, but yeah, pretty much straight through with the axis of the engine. What about centrifugal? Nice. I heard it and I saw it. Very good. Okay. That's good review for right now. Any questions on that review? Yeah.
So exhaust part is on the tip of that cone thing or on the cone?
We're going to talk about exhaust probably tomorrow. But like after the turbine, this is considered the whole exhaust section. And we'll talk about what that component is. That's the actual part of the engine. But then the air is flowing all around it. Any other questions? So we've got up to this is Monday. Ooh, Friday. We talked up through the diffuser. So now we're going to start in on the combustion section. So our burner can, burner section, combustors, those are the terms to be familiar perforated liner, and then we are gonna inject fuel in there if we need a fire to burn. So fuel, and then an ignition system. So igniters are going plug. We're gonna talk about that later. So fuel and ignition, that's another lecture. We're gonna go in depth onto those, but just remember for now that the combustion section contains those components. And remember this is something very important to know. You will be asked again, possibly in a situation where you're not allowed to have any resources. Except your brain is a valuable resource. The function of this section, of the combustion section, is to add heat energy to the flowing gases, thereby expanding and accelerating the gases into the turbine section. So, in the compressor, we're kind of exchanging velocity for pressure, velocity for pressure, velocity for pressure, and now we got all our pressure, but we need more energy added to all of these events going on to get all the work we can out of our turbines. So, adding heat energy to our flowing gas.
Could that be thought of as more pressure? Or not? Is that a bad way to
No, not really. We'll talk about what happens. It is a key word, expanding. So it's expanding them, but you're going to see the way it's designed, we're going to extract velocity onto our turbine. So that's just in the design, rather than getting pressure, we're getting velocity and expansion out of it. Another thing to know is we have 3 types of combustion chambers. This is something else you need to know very well, be familiar with, be able to recite it in a one-on-one situation. So we have can, annular, and then some really smart people is like, I think we could combine these. So can, annular is a combination of these two. And we're going to talk in depth about those 3 types of combustion chambers. So first one we're going to talk about, the can, is usually multiple cans. You can have a single can, like you're going to see on the Allison 250, which is over here. I brought one in. You'll be doing your labs on these. But later, this week possibly, you're going to be going into the combustion chamber of the Allison and see it's just a single can in here that is a combustion chamber. And each one is self-contained with the burning that's going on inside. And what are our 3? Everybody say it so you got it in your head. Can, annular, can, annular. You're already there. So we're just doing an overview of the 3 types now. Going to go in depth. Annular, now, we just have one big opening the whole way around. One big open chamber around the engine. It'll have multiple fuel nozzles around it. And the fuel nozzles will be kind of stacked next to each other. And again, don't forget the 3 types. Person's on it. And now, can annular, we have multiple cans, but instead of being kind of self-contained, you got 65, whole person gets a gold star. So in the PT6, 65% is used for cooling, and I believe, and Kurt, I'm right in assuming this, when it says 45% of the air leaving the compressor, that's not counting like on a turbofan, the fan air
That's correct.
for cooling. So that's kind of, if I confuse on why those numbers might not at first agree, we're still having fan air that never goes through all the compressor sections. So coming out the core of the compressor on modern engines, 45 generally is used for combustion. Any questions on that?
Yeah, we're talking about just the compressor air that's gonna feed combustion. That amount of air is this percentage.
Did you still have?
Yeah, I'm still confused on what the difference between primary and secondary is.
Oh, so they're just saying primary air is what's being fed into the burner, and secondary air is what's used for cooling.
Okay. And that's what you said, the same air, it's just how much is in the combustor, how much is cooling.
For the-
external of it.
I can expound on that a little bit too.
Yeah.
But it depends, can I see your next slide?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're gonna explain it. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So, was there anything I wanted to show? So, yeah, our air's coming in here, getting burned. We're going to talk more about how and why the air is flowing, but then you have the cooling air on the outside, so you're not melting stuff. Yeah. So, although secondary airflow in a chamber may be at a velocity of several hundred feet per second, primary airflow is metered and slowed by swirl vanes. So that's represented in here. The swirl vanes create a radial motion, so circulating the air, and retards slow down the axial motion, so the air without that would just go shooting on through. But it's slowing it down, so it's not doing the axial straight through, it's doing a swirling. Slow down axial motion of the air to an almost stagnant 5 or 6 feet per second. So going from several hundred feet to 5 or 6 feet per second in a vortex type flow to mix that air with the fuel and burn it well. And also, I'll show this on the PT6, but you have this cooling air flowing in at different perforations along the chamber, so it is keeping that flame centered in the chamber, so the flame is not touching the metal, otherwise the metal will start to melt. So the cooling air is coming in, keeping that flame away from the metal. And we're going to talk about later the fuel nozzles, how they're designed to give a mist and atomize the fuel so that everything is burning as well as it can. And that we'll talk about when it doesn't do that and it's dumping fuel in or streaking fuel in, and how that can cause burning in your combustion chamber. Have you talked, I don't know that you, maybe you have. Have you talked about, I always have a hard time saying this word, stoichiometric. Have you heard that word yet? Oh, I get to introduce it. So exciting. Ryan always has fun with it, so he can still have fun. But, so first of all, as far as efficiency, the combustor in a turbine is efficient in the range of 99 to 100%. I didn't look up what go out. So we can have too little fuel and have too much air, and that's called a lean flame out. We're going to talk more about flame outs. Or too much fuel and too little air and it's too rich, and we have flame out. Or our velocity of airflow can be too much and blow out our flame. So there's all these variables, so we got to get it like Goldilocks, wanted it just right. Any questions on that? So now more about our types of combustors, and what are the three types? I like it, Trevor. You put spirit into it.
Yeah.
So you're getting gold star still. So multiple can combustors. They were used in older aircraft, older engines. It is older type of combustion chamber, not commonly in use today. And again, consists of multiple inner housings. So you can think of each one has its own happy little house. And each one inside of it has its own perforated liner. Typically, on a multiple can combustion section, they'll include 8 or 10 cans. Now, thinking about the two types of compressors and what they are, what type, because here we got to receive air, here we got to receive air, out in this outer, outer circle. What type of compressor do you think would work best with this type of combustor? So smart. So this is suited for centrifugal compressor engines because of the way the compressor discharge air is equally divided at the diffuser. And individual combustors are interconnected with small flame propagation tubes. So they will have, here it's a little hard to see, but you have tubes from one to the next to help that flame cross from one to the next. And combustion will start in just 2 cans. You just have 2 igniter plugs, usually the 4 and 8 o'clock position. Ignites that, and then because of the flame propagation tube, our flame starts here and there, and then it'll spread to all the rooms.
So if those are all connected by tubes, what's the difference between that and a can annular?
So these are just small tubes. Just
So if the tubes are big, you just can't annular?
no. I think I'll show some more pictures, and I have one at the end that shows them all together,
All
the
right.
3 different ones compared.
Abed, Leo, Parker, Ursong, Steven. You guys make your way over to the AIS hangar anytime you wait. Don't touch.
Ask
So,
them,
Abed, Leo, Parker, Ursong, Steven.
ask them what kind of combustor PT6 has. Yes.
So can combustors are not used much anymore, don't you? Because the first slide.
Yeah. Multiple cans.
Okay, because I was taking notes, and I think one of the first slides when you're going over the 3 different ones, it said usually the can type are usually multiple cans. Is that accurate? Did I mistype that?
Right, if it is can, it will be multiple cans.
Okay,
Yeah,
but they're not used as much today.
multiple can, right,
Okay.
yes. Because Allison uses a single can, but that's just one type of engine.
Okay.
Now, Allison is used in helicopters, like pass it around. But you can kind of see, that's like a basket. You good in the back row? It consists of a housing, so it'll have a housing around it, and then a perforated liner or the basket, and it can have two baskets. We'll see an illustration in the next slide of that. Commonly used in small and large engines, and if you look at thermal efficiency, weight, and physical size, it is the most efficient. And air flows from the front to the rear, and it does have to be removed as a single unit. So in this one, we're going to pass around. You're going to see how all the areas that air is entering and how it's keeping the flame front centered around the whole thing, so the flame's not touching the metal. And then our areas for fuel nozzles, and thinking this might be an igniter hole. There. And here is, it says some can have two baskets or two liners. So here we have the dual liner or dual basket type that they're both going the whole way around. Any questions on that?
Do you have another picture like that of a can?
No, I have another one like this, but not nicely sectioned out like this. So I think the one that'll show these, the three of them next to each other, is going to help.
What were the holes for? Were they to keep the flame internal, like away from the walls?
Allow the air in at the front for the fuel nozzle, but then through the back, that's to allow still the right amount of airflow for the right burning, and also kind of as an air blanket to keep the flame away from the metal. So here's my favorite, annular combustor, reverse flow, and this is what is on the PP6. So it's designed with a reverse airflow direction, so air is coming in here, comes in the sides, comes in the back. Here is our fuel nozzle, flame front comes here, expanding our air because we're adding a whole lot of heat energy, and the air accelerates, boom, onto our turbines. And this is just a cross section, so this burner can is going the whole way around our turbines. And the cool thing is, the turbine wheels typically are inside the combustor instead of downstream of it. So some engines you'll have the compressor, and then combustor, and then turbines, then that stretches out your engine. Where here, they tuck the turbines right in between the combustor. And that allows for shorter and lighter engines that uses the hot gases to preheat the compressor discharge air. So you're also helping out that burning to happen at the right temperature. And yeah, shorter engine and weight reduction. I think phone holder. Or thanks, John. So, kind of that view for now, and then you can zoom in on different things. So, as we're coming off here on our PT6, what are these components? Deck user. So, that's our point of what? Highest pressure. So, we got highest pressure feeding into our combustion. And these holes, I don't know if you can zoom in or whatever works, are where our air is entering. And then, right here, is our, excellent camera work, fuel nozzle on the inside. So, fuel nozzles are in a ring, in a manifold all the way around the outside, coming into our combustion chamber. And then, now this is all cut away, but this would be, of course, solid up through here. Air is wrapping around, coming in all along both sides. And these little tab-looking things are cooling rings. So these guys and that guy, they are directing air to help cool this liner. So this is our liner of our combustion chamber. And then the flame comes this way, expanding the air, heating it up, comes down through there. What kind of shape or duct is this? Converging. Getting a whole lot of velocity onto, we're going to talk about what this component is. Thank you very much. Any questions on that? And this is what you're going to be expected to explain, of course, starting from up here, on your final. So again, anytime you want, like during lab time today, if you're not assigned to a lab, I can't talk and be on my phone at the same time. You can grab me and start going, learning how to talk through all of those airflows. Okay.
I did have a question. As that burning happens and you get all this heat that's wrapping around, yeah, there's cooling fins for up top where the combustion starts. But as it goes through that converging duct, picks up speed and then wraps around, does it have a tendency as it wraps around to want to heat up that back face and striking dance as it goes around? Yeah.
Both of these have things cooling them.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. But yeah, you need to, and all that's engineered how the cooling airflow is flowing to not let that blast it. Yeah. This is a cool picture from an early type of the Whittle combustion chamber. And he had the idea of reverse flow. So compressor air comes in here, comes into our burner, and then gets discharged. But his needed a bit of work because it lost a considerable amount of pressure. But he did have the idea. And that's just a close-up of what I was showing up here. I really like this picture because it shows those diffusers and their shape really well. Some free trivia. What do you think these lines are for? Cooling. We got a cooling, we got a,
I don't know, which line, which one is it?
oh, sorry.
I'll look at that.
So we have one here, and one here. So we have a little one, medium one, and a bigger one. Fuel injection? He says no. We got a huh and a no. Okay, I affirm the no.
Sensors.
Sensors? Bleed air? Anything else? And this is our shaft. We got bearings. three sections. And then this is an oil pressure line, and this is an oil scavenge line. We're going to talk about why would the oil scavenge be bigger than the oil pressure line. And then just a closer side view coming off our diffuser, coming in here where our fuel gets injected, and then out to our turbine.
Question on the reverse flow. Why,
Yeah.
if that's going to save space and weight, why don't you do it for all turbines stuff? Is that a dumb question?
Ooh, that's a good Kirk question.
Does it have something to do with like a PT6 and like energy going to crank shaft versus just thrust, or?
It depends what energy you want to extract out of the engine for what the use is. If you take like a large turbofan engine used in a large aircraft or fighter jet, then you want an axial flow with more stages of compression, bigger angular chambers for combustion, and then all that power going to the turbines, power the fan. That, they don't mind the longer engine because they want to extract a tremendous amount of power out of that engine. This one here, they can extract the amount of engine by condensing it and doing the reverse flow. There are some jet engines out there that do have reverse flow combustion chambers. They're just smaller jet engines for the amount of power that they need. So yeah, it's all part of engineering. You wouldn't have a great big, powerful engine that would have a reverse flow. That would just be too much. You can get more energy by just going axially all the way through.
Okay. So, Josh, here's another picture of the can annulus. So the cans was like basically a self-contained, each had its whole housing, where here the cans are all perforated. So, can annular is a combination of the multiple can and the annular, and it has a removable steel shroud that encircles the entire combustion section. So inside of that shroud that's coming the whole way around, shroud or casing or housing, inside of that are multiple burner cans. So instead of this whole thing having just one annular perforation, it's each can has its perforated liner. Yeah. They're assembled radially about the engine axis with bullet-shaped perforated liners. And the fuel nozzles are attached to the forward end of each burner. So each burner has its own fuel nozzle. And each one also inside it has pre-swirl vanes around each fuel nozzle, so as the air's coming in, it's going to slow down, swirl for the best combustion. And then it'll have flame propagation tubes to connect the individual liners, because there's only two igniter plugs. So only two of these get ignited, but I don't see it on here. There will be a small tube connecting the cans so that flame can spread from one to the next.
It's very typical, on a jet engine to only have two igniter plugs. And on a typical jet engine, not sure on the P6, I've seen it many times, I don't remember right now. But it's typically, you'll have two igniter plugs on the bottom of the engine at the 4 o'clock and the 8 o'clock position. Almost every jet engine turbofan out there will have two about the 4 o'clock
that sending that flame to the next one, to the next one. But you can see easily from here, it's like, okay, this has one can all self-contained other than the flame propagation tube.
So inside that can will be the perforated combustion chamber inside that can. So that you'll have the air coming in inside that can there, and that'll surround another inner can that has little holes in it and the fuel nozzle. So everything's self-contained in that one can to have the air come around the perforated liner with the burner and shoot out. Now, if you can imagine that angular combustion chamber, if you don't mind. Let's just use this for an example. Okay, let's say for instance, now this is an annular, so it's all open, it's just gonna burn, you have the fuel nozzles, right? So just imagine if I took individual pop cans and put them in here, inside this annular chamber, had individual pop cans, and inside those individual pop cans, they were perforated and had its own fuel nozzle. But they were inside this liner. That's a can annular.
That,
So the
The liner
air
still-
in here is coming through each individual burner can. So that's can annular.
is the liners still perforated, or no?
No, this would be solid then, to contain the air. So this would have no holes in it, this would contain the air, but each burner can would have the holes in it. So once this entire liner is pressurized, the air goes inside each can to help propagate the flame and allow it to go through. So it's like having an annular, solid annular chamber with individual combustor cans inside this annular air dome. Okay, that would be a can annular. So you take the cans out, now you can perforate this, and just make this a burner. That's an annular. And then the cans are just individual cans. And inside each individual can is gonna be its perforated liner, and you'll see that when you do the Allison. This is one can, so the air comes around a perforated can, inside the perforated can is the fuel nozzle for the flames. Okay. Hope that helps.
Yeah, that does sound like.
What is the benefit of a can annular over just an annular?
I think we have a slide, but yes, benefit of can annular over can.
No, over annular.
Or wait, can,
A can annular over an annular.
so annular is better now.
Okay, that's what I.
Yep, and that's why there are not much, as many of them. Yeah, because it's most efficient.
Okay.
So here's kind of a diagram of that, the can annular. So we have cooling airflow around each of our cans, the perforated can inside of our whole housing. And each one is getting its airflow to propagate that flame. So hopefully this illustration kind of shows it. Oh yeah, and the next one, here we go. So this is the one I was talking about. Maybe not as great as what I was promoting, but we have the can where each one is its individual housing, then the perforated liner. Each has a fuel nozzle, and then the 4 and 8 position about will have the igniters. And then the cannular or can annular, you'll see it either way. We have the housing as a kind of an annular housing, but we still have the perforated cans with their fuel nozzle around. And then the annular, there's just one opening the whole way around, still with fuel nozzles and igniters. Questions? Yeah.
Are we at some point gonna talk about like efficiency of them, or why have different ones?
I had it because can annular, no, that was on actually not as common. So pretty much becoming annular, I think.
Yeah, even the larger engines are annual.
Now I'm talking about flame out. So I think I mentioned this the other day, but there can be
things here, were these like cool air fins?
Cooling rings. Yeah.
Cooling rings.
Yeah.
How do they cool the air though?
It's just as it comes in, I think they kind of,
Does it cause that swirling effect?
yeah, and like there's,
Oh, so,
the holes are like right on top of them,
right.
so I think it kind of accelerates.
That would also slow
They
your
are,
air down.
like they are a
A
little,
little bit convergent.
yeah. So kind of,
So in other words, when the air comes through here, basically hits this and forces it back, which would also slow your air down.
Oh, it says 0.
yeah. Yeah, so being there coming in,
And then right here, it would speed it up. But
yeah.
Do you have your own pressure?
Oh, it's so dark.
trace the air flow through. Up through here. Through here.
Christina, can I see that last slide real quick? If you don't mind? Are you on something else? Oh, okay, that's fine.
The cold, oh, through the door?
Like right through the.
I think,
I didn't check.
I think it's your air coming out of your diffuser right here, coming in, swirling back around.
Oh, this is the cool.
Right.
So 65% of our air, so. This is the cool.
Was it 65% that was cooling the air on the PT6, or was it 65% going into the burner?
So most of the air is going around here.
Right, and that's what gives, basically you're getting like an air barrier for your plug.
And
My
then
understanding.
turn off the compressor. And then to turn on.
Oh, I don't get. Wait. Oh, this doesn't actually connect, does it?
That's why they call it the three.
I thought it was like missing a clutch or something in there. So this turn the compressor.
What's crazy is all that power just straight through
One little turbo. But it's geared down so much. Don't let him go full 120. John? Yes, sir. Go. 120.
Each one's like a little.
Yeah.
Golly.
That sounds so bad. Should we go in there and come down to the knee?
Austin, Elijah, John, Charlie, Isaac, and Sam.
You don't get the mic. You don't get my mic. I'm not even ready to drive.
Yes, it is. I have a brain enough to this is the life.
I highly suggest not wearing a sweatshirt. It's hot. Yeah, when he's like running it up to take off, you feel it.
So, thank you. Christina, I have a question. So, what are all these little holes down here for? Is that for like?
Joey.
Is
So it goes through a whole bunch of lovely questions, asking you to identify what is what on these compressors. And then it comes to question 13. It says, write a brief explanation below describing the airflow through both an axial and centrifugal type compressor from entry to exit, including all of the components. You can use your textbook, you can use the slides, but I want it to be in your own words. Anybody can copy paste. You don't have to be a mechanic to do that. So I want you to, as a mechanic, describe what is happening. For example, I want you to talk about if there are rotors and stators and what each of those components does to the airflow, or what happens to centrifugal airflow. Does it just go out into outer space, or is there a way it's directed? So all the components and what's happening with the airflow. That's it on number 2. So you've been working, or you will be working on, thank you, lab 6. The compressor inspection, which takes you through the manual. Also on that one, I did a review the other day. The exact manual that it tells you, use that manual, not the one that Christina told you the other day. So this is correct what it says in here. So go through that. But I opened up number 2 of lab 6. So this is the practical. So this is where we're going to start doing our group rotation. I have it posted back there. In a minute we'll figure out what exactly groups are going to go today. But this is the compressor inspection on the Allison engines. So I'm going to take this buddy back up there, because this will be one of the ones you work on. You are taking apart this compressor according to the manual. Extremely critical that you follow exactly what the manual tells you. It may be very helpful to read through that whole section of the manual, because sometimes it'll say, oh, by the way, don't ever do this, after you might have done it if you just blaze right into it. So read through, understand what you're supposed to do before you just dive into it, or you will be in a world of hurt. And I'll just go, ha ha ha, you didn't read the manual now, did you? See you next year. Very important, it says here, remove all FOD before entering the engine work area. I want to see clean, neat work and tool accountability. Because when you're working on engines, if you leave something inside of there, you have, number 1, destroyed an engine. If that little piece of hardware just chills out for a while and it happens in flight, you could be responsible for killing people. So, extremely important, you control all FOD. Also, now, on these engines, it's not as critical, but when you are working on an engine, on an aircraft, you want to lay down a drop sheet, because who knows what's below the engine, depending where it's at, especially if it's a helicopter. Because if you drop hardware down into something underneath, it goes ding, 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 and you never see it again. Having a drop cloth will be super helpful to your copy. And then you're going to have instructor verify your compressor disassembly and inspection before you reinstall it. So when you have it disassembled, Kirk or NRI need to come and going to have some questions for you, make sure you have the manual there, and go through some stuff with you. We'll give you first sign off, and then when you have it all back together and you think you have everything done, that will be your final sign off on that lab. Then reinstall the case tab, inventory all tools. So for the Allison, we do have some very special toolkits and put together. So when I give this to the first groups, you are responsible. All tools must be returned, or you will see a significant markdown in your grade. And then they're in, it's kind of hidden in my Moodle, but you'll have a logbook entry on yours. And I'll go over the next lab after Kirk tells his story.
Okay. Yeah, we had this is about flameouts. So when I was in the service, this is the aircraft that I worked on, and I was part of the I was the jet engine mechanic on this. And so we just got done installing an engine, and one of the first things we have to do, and you'll learn this later on in the class about trimming an engine and what trimming means. Setting idle, setting high power. But we also had to do accel decel checks. So when we put the engine in, the engine sits back here. So this is that 26-foot inlet. And so what we have to do is make sure everything runs fine. Then we got to go to full power. Then we got to come back to idle, make sure everything's good. Then we do accel decel checks. So we went ahead and slammed it forward, and your accel has to be like right around 5.5, 6 seconds to hit full power. And then you come back to idle, slam it to idle, and you got to come back to idle within 6.5 to 8.5 seconds, okay? If it's too fast, you can lean it out. If you accelerate too quick, you can blow it out. So everything was all set, perfect. Now before this actually gets returned to military service, one of our pilots have to take it up and do a test flight on it. So he went ahead and took it out. I did the engine. I had it all set up, ready to go. So he took it out, and he went up to 30,000 foot, and he did his accel decel checks. Perfect. On his checklist then, he went up to 40,000 foot. And he went ahead and did his accel. It worked. He did his decel. Engine flamed out. Now, what do you think the glide ratio is of this rock? Yeah, it's a rock, so there's not much glide ratio at all. So with his engine out, he's going down like this, and he figures, okay, he's just going to windmill the engine, just the airflow coming through, windmill the engine, and he can relight the engine. Wouldn't relight. He's coming down through 25,000 feet, won't relight. Coming down to 20,000 foot, won't relight. Now there's all this chatter going on back on board ship in the ready room saying, hey, we got an aircraft coming down, pilot's trying to relight it, it ain't working. So one of our other A7 pilots came down next to him and just following him down. He says, okay, when you reach 10,000 feet, you punch out. And so as he's coming down, trying to light it, he's going through manual fuel control, automatic fuel control, back and forth, trying to relight it, didn't get it lit, went down to 10,000 feet, coming down like this. And then his buddy next to him said, okay, it's time to punch out, just let it go. He says, no, I'll stick with it. So he's going through 9,000 feet. 8,000 feet, 7,000 feet. Everybody on board ship is like, what the heck? What's going on? Get out of that aircraft. He got down to like about 6,000 foot and got the engine relit. Brought it in and brought it on board ship. They ended up calling me down there in the ready room because they knew I did that engine. So I'm actually listening to the chatter on the radio about him trying to light the engine. So finally he got the engine relit. Brought it back on board, and what we found out was the little temperature limiter amplifier that mounts to the engine on this left side, right back about here, failed. Even though it all set up on the ground, we had it ready to go, but in flight, it failed. And so it just threw the accel decels all the way off, the whole engine parameters. And so that got me off the hook. Because if that would have went into the water, then we would have had a huge investigation, and I would have been the center of that investigation. So you don't ever want to be part of an investigation, okay? So part of that is for us to teach you guys to make sure that you're not part of investigations, is we want to make sure that you uphold your professionalism, do everything you need to do, including tool control. Because you don't ever want an incident where there's a tool left over and then something happens to an aircraft in flight. And if the investigators find out it was a tool and it comes back to you, you're going to be the center of a big investigation and a lawsuit. So even when we're out in the labs, I love how this is going to segue.
Yeah.
Even when they're out in the labs, take your tool control seriously. Lay stuff out, lay parts out accordingly, make sure you put everything back together, follow the manual, and exercise tool control and keep everything clean. Sound good? Cool.
Did you have anything for them? I went over lab 6, I was going over lab 11, but anything for
Okay, that's just going in and checking the first stage compressor and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Oh, the Allison, this
Allison,
one, this is
yeah.
where we're gonna be removing the halves.
Yeah.
Yeah, as the teams get out there, I'll show you things to, prevent you from making mistakes. I'll do that individually with teams.
that sounds great. And then lab, here we go. So lab 11, when you get out there, this will be on the PT6 engines. And we'll go over how to use the borescope. Some of you already have experience, but this is a very fragile, expensive instrument. If you haven't touched it before, make sure you get an instructor to go over it with you because they're easily damaged. And then right here is, there it goes. Instructions on, we give you the page number, go ahead and look at the PT6A-6-20 series maintenance manual, so make sure you find that, have that ready as you come out to start the lab. Kind of familiarize yourself with it. It also lists some damage to be looking for, through the inlet screen, the first stage compressor. Any questions? Wow, oh, you four guys are holding up that side of the room. All right, now, I think I'll keep the groups I had because they should be back. So Leo and Charlie are group 1. Anybody know how long ago they left?
They're probably almost there.
Okay, thanks. So I'll get them.
You might wanna take a stroll to the break room, see who's there.
Oh no! Trevor, can you take a quick run to the break room and say class is not over, then you give me, I give you my authority extended. Thank you. They'll get some demerit. Alright, I'm gonna bring the schedule up.
Hey Christina, when I'm out with you, Ryan wants me to help him out, he's got his check out.
Okay. Okay. Alright, here is our schedule.
I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks for looking.
But they moved all the tables.
Here you go.
I like it.
So, let's see. I'm gonna switch this group. So, Dan! What's up? Since Gavin is away for the rest of this afternoon, I'm gonna have you and then Zach! Hey! Sweet! Okay, so, group 4, I'm swapping for group 2. So you guys are gonna be on the compressor lab 6 today. And then, sweet, Mike and Anthony, awesome. Why do I look and then I do the same. So Mike and Anthony, you can get started on the compressor, and then hopefully Charlie and Leo will be back. Then, oh good, Tim Peterson and Josh, you'll be getting started on the PT6 borescoping, so look up that information manual and then choose a PT6 out there. And Trevor and Elijah hopefully be back. Borescope and Corbin and Harrison will hopefully be back. Borescope today. So we have group 1, 3, 4 on the compressors, and group 7, 8, and 9 on the borescope of the PT6. Ooh, there they come. There they come.
You need that Allison put back out in the lab?
Yeah. So Leo, you're doing compressor. that engine. So I'm gonna release you to that in a second, but I want Nate, Micah, Zach, Charlie's not here. Oh, Anthony, not you, never mind, the other Anthony. Parker, disregard. Parker, Sydney, John's not here, Dan's not here, Austin's not here. Okay, if those can just come up here, and I'm gonna meet with you for a second about the Gen Z mission statement. The rest of you can go to lab. Gen Z mission. I invited David and he's like, he's not coming. Not for you. You go out. Okay, so tonight, 5:30. Are you all three?
Yeah, I am.
5:30.
Micah's Ginny.
Just barely. But
Apparently.
I like a month or
Too
two.
late.
Dude, lucky.
Dang.
5:30 at El Mariachi in downtown Island. At 5:30. So, and they said they're not doing anything here first, so you can do it at 5:30. Whoever gets there first, I have it reserved in my name, Christina, Lehigh, and they should take you to the back.
Where you get that?
So I don't know if anybody wants to carpool, because it is all street parking. Or you can walk from the lot. That's up to you guys. That's all I have. Thank you.
That just took out. Right.
I was supposed to do the question, but I have not gotten around to all of it.
That's okay.
Do that, like, take my 5 minutes to downtown.
No, my arm has to be sideways.
We're just
Saving
Just an engine.
The actual engine, and I think, like, you're going to go through the section anyway. You go ahead and insert it.
seeing which one. So the one I was just in is this guy, and this is the actual map.
Okay, I have 3 of them.
Dash 60, dash 20.
Yeah, but I have 3 of them.
Me too. Let's go to the big one.
You know what? Really cool pants?
I'll give you a deal.
That should work. So I have to do it without Charlie at this point. Just me and Charlie.
Don't get too far with it.
Well, he's gonna be a bit, yeah. Unless I work on the questions until he gets back, but I don't know what you wanna try and get through today.
We do have a whole extra day, so I'm not too worried about that.
Unless you wanna switch one with Charlie's here just today, I don't know. Or I let these guys go first, and I'll come up behind. This might be the worst manual yet. Is it 6 people at a time or just 2?
Just 2. So you,
So if I let today, let Micah and his one go first.
so they already have an engine. So we had 3 Allisons, so all 3.
Oh, okay, there's 3, okay.
Yeah.
I
And,
thought
like,
it was
we
all
can
in one.
circulate other people, so I'm not too concerned about one being a little behind, but thanks.
I thought it was just on one, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, because Gavin's not here, he had a doctor appointment. So I'm going to, today, I'm gonna
is it two separate ones? Or is it, or don't you know?
I think they're kind of